You are listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Cattle Call Podcast. I'm your host, the always loud, always obnoxious Jim Coppinger, and with me, as always, from Zentech is my partner and the much more refined, quiet, and well-spoken one, Mr.
Rocco Parisi.
Hey,
is that refined?
You sound questionable. It's like you're not sure of your own name there some days, dude. I worry about you. I really do. So with us today in the studio...
I was trying to sound refined.
Nah, it didn't work. You just sounded confused. You got to work on refined. Next podcast, you're just going to be my confused partner. That's it. We're done now. Goodness. So, yeah, today we have Mr. Todd Rogers back with us again. Todd is a senior associate over at Walter P. Moore, and he is an expert in all things civil GIS and BIM. So, Todd, thank you so much for coming back to talk to us again. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me back.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So, like I said, it's always great to have you on, Todd, because you always give us honest answers. There's no BS when you're involved, right? We get honest answers into whatever we're talking about. So that's a fantastic thing, right? So we get the plus and the minus, the positive and the negative, whatever topic we happen to be discussing. So
that's right.
So today, what we're going to be discussing, we're going to be talking about the idea of visualizations in the civil environments. We're going to talk about the good and the bad of it. I have no doubt. Yes. That's why you're here. Lay it out as it should be. So, all right. So, traditionally, visualization, right? This has been a very low priority topic for those of us who work in the civil arena. I know it's something that, architects spend, quite a lot of time doing. At heart, all architects fancy themselves to be artists. We're in the civil world, we're engineers. We have no time for fancy visualization and presentations, right? So, like I said, the architects will put on, renderings and display boards, and they'll build 3D models and physical models out of, popsicle sticks or whatever they can find. But like I said, in the civil world, we tend to throw plans at everybody and go, look, there it is, figure it out, we're done. Okay? So, Todd, then I'm gonna throw it at you, right? So let's start with the why of today's topic, right? Why do you think that visualization is important in the civil world? Why not just stick with traditional 2D plan presentations?
Well, the way we've found out, doing this personally is you take a 2D plan to a city council, or let's say you're doing a subdivision and all the residents are around that subdivision are concerned about this, that, and the other, and you take a set of plans and you show them. They don't have a clue what they're looking at, man. So
that's a valid point.
So it's basically, doing this for the benefit of getting your design incentives across to the public, across to the stakeholders, across to the council members, across to the the disciplines that are going to be approving this, so they can actually see it, opposed to looking at a piece of paper and kind of guessing. Okay, this is that, this is going there, what is that, what is this, so they can actually see it.
Yeah, and that's a huge point. It's something that I've found the hard way. Guys like us, we spend so many years doing this. We look at the plans on a daily basis. We know how to visualize them. We understand it. We tend to assume that everyone else does. And I found that at the hard way with my wife when I try to show her plans and she yells at me and says, I don't know what that means. And I go, okay, never mind. So, I guess everybody doesn't understand plans. It's a very valid point. All right, so that's a great answer. So, all right, so, in my personal experience, here's what I'll throw out at you, right? Civil people in my history have been really resistant to the idea of spending time and money on visualizations, even though I have many times pointed out to them exactly what you just said, that it really does help get this across to the stakeholders in a manner that they can understand. But let's face it, right? We're in the civil world, we're a very conservative group of folks. And everybody in this industry tends to stick with if it ain't broke, don't fix it model of thought. So when it comes to visualizations of any kind, engineers rarely want to spend the time and the money that it's going to take to put them together, unless it's on a really large project, or if they are absolutely desperate, right? And if there's any kind of a conflict and they really need to convince the public or the client, or if maybe the client actually requested it for their marketing materials or whatever. That's about the only time that I've seen them do the visualizations. They just normally don't see the profitability there. In terms of real world costs then, what are we looking at in terms of, what does it cost to develop a visualization model, and what's really the potential ROI from a monetary standpoint that makes it worth the time and the effort?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I was really fortunate to get this position with Walter P. Moore in doing this. My initial welcoming into this company was to bring this, technology into the civil and infrastructure department and utilize it. So in terms of real world costs, it's nothing but my salary. But if you're talking about, a little mom and pop civil engineering firm out there, it could potentially, break a budget. It could bust it, potentially. As far as the return of investment on it, we're doing more and more of these. You get that initial one out there and people start expecting it after that. So now, there's going to be a billboard in front of the University of Texas from a project that we're doing that was modeled in InfoWorks that I did the visualization for. So they're putting it on the billboard for marketing purposes. Right. So people that look at it say, oh, so that's what they're doing here. They don't just see a street with a bunch of lines on it,
That definitely helps. So absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely right. You do have to look at it from both setups, and I think that visualization projects they require, I think, a little bit of long-term thinking. Like I said, it does have benefits, I think, both at the individual project and, like you were saying, at the corporate level, right? Like I said, if nothing else, it definitely helps you project a much larger and more professional image as a firm, right? When you're, on a 50-foot high billboard inside of everybody, that's huge marketing, and everybody remembers your name. Like, wow, this is a real high quality, high level, firm that we're dealing with.
Exactly.
And I think, at even at the project level, there is another benefit to my mind, and it is a little bit of a risk. And like you said, if you don't have people who are comfortable with visualizations and how to work them, you can eat up good chunks of your budget. But I think that even at a project level, visualizations can really help you identify, potential issues and conflicts between, systems and sight lines and so on. And it can be a great double check for you, right? It helps you point out areas and items that we didn't consider, right? It's one thing when you draw two lines on a plan and say, hey, I'm going to put a retaining wall here. That's great. It works. But when you look at it and see, hey, that is one ugly 7-foot high concrete retaining wall in the middle of the neighborhood, the folks who live next door aren't usually happy with you. And a simple rendering.
It's funny you mentioned that. We were actually asked at one point in time, so they were building a wall at the Houston Zoo. And they wanted to see what a 6-foot man would be seeing if they could see across that wall to this new building that they were constructing on the other side of the wall. Now, the building was a very ugly building, so that's one reason they wanted to make sure that they couldn't
Nobody can see it. Hey.
It's like a pump building or something to that nature. But it was great. They could say, okay, so we need to make the fence just a little bit higher than it already is. That's going to have to be put in our construction budget now.
There you go. That works. Okay. So, all right then, Todd, what getting into the, more of the visualization, right? What processes and specific workflows do you think see the most benefit from visualization, right? And at what point in the project do they bring the most benefit? Are we talking, do we want to get into visualizations during, preliminary design, final submittals? Is it strictly for, development and landscape, or does it play into utilities and underground? And where does it fly?
So it definitely comes in the preliminary process as it is now. It's working its way to the final stuff, obviously, the architects have to take care of the final stuff to show their pretty Revit drawings that are rendered and all that, yada, yada, yada. But, the the specific workflow right now is to see it before it's designed. Now, with InfoWorks, and I've got some really, really bad quirks with InfoWorks. I can slam it all day long. But starting in InfoWorks and going into Civil 3D with the InfoWorks model is pretty seamless. That's two softwares out there that actually talk to each other better than any two softwares I know of right now. So that helps tremendously. And obviously you can go back from Civil 3D back into InfoWorks if you need to for more visualization purposes.
Okay.
So yeah, preliminary, definitely.
Okay. All right. So that's good. So, all right. So, thinking about this, I'm certain that there are still some of our listeners, who are listening here and they're shaking their head right now. And they're just thinking, no, we just do not have the budget to pay for this type of stuff. Listen, the truth is the civil world runs on a very tight profit margin. I mean, usually 5 to 8%. That's considered good numbers for most design houses, right? So, you can understand why people are definitely concerned about the costs here for their project. So let's bring my my refined partner in here, my confused partner, Rocco, and say, Rocco, is this a topic that even comes up for most of our civil clients? I mean, do you even hear from folks who are looking to get the software and the skills they need to really start handling visualization on the civil side?
I don't, but it just, based on this discussion, it seems like it should be a logical addition to the whole process, the whole workflow process, right? But, I put the question back to both of you guys, and we all obviously follow what goes on within the industry and news and trends and such. And you really don't see many folks even talking about visualization or the importance of visualization in civil. Am I wrong?
No, that's the when Todd brought up this topic, that's why I jumped on it. I was like, ooh, that's a great topic for us because you don't hear it a lot.
No, you don't. Yeah. You really don't. And talking to other, 'cause I used to work for a reseller, so I know quite a few engineering firms and the people there. So, and I talk to them and ask them about it, pretty frequently, and they're like, no, we don't do that. We actually are putting the visualization in our project budgets now. So, it's kind of there, and let's say we don't even need it. Well, we had the budget for it, so.
Yeah, you got a little bit left in the till, right? There. Exactly. So
that's right,
and that's it, right? And that's perfect, right? So here I was going to ask you, right, that Walter P. Moore, you guys are a large company, you're known internationally, right? You guys work on huge projects, so everybody assumes that you can afford to do these visualizations, right? But listen, I will point out that maybe doing things like this and being a little proactive is why Walter P. Moore is the size and as popular as they are. So Todd, taking that into account, right? How would you encourage smaller firms to get involved with visualizations, and why should they really invest in doing this?
So that's pretty broad. So and this is going to get into our discussion later too with the AR, VR, and AR things. It's it all ties together at one point, right? So we're all in it to win it, to make the most money off the project, to get it done the quickest, the correct way, and this helps. It really does help. It's not a big learning curve by any means. There's hundreds of resources to learn this. The software is included with your AEC collection. Mm-hmm. Most people have an AEC collection now. It's cheaper to have an AEC collection. They complained about it for the longest time. Why do I need all this software? I don't ever use any of the software. I use about 85% of the AEC collection. I use all kinds of stuff in it for different things. And you have to. If you're going to make a specific thing work, you can't do it with one tool.
Right, that's a fair point, right? You've got most of the tools anyway. It's just about taking the time to learn how to use what you've already paid for. Right, which seems
Exactly.
simple, but obviously, based on your impression, you've dealt with some of our clients. So, all right. So I think we're going to take a break here to listen to a word from today's sponsor, and we'll be back more in a little bit to talk with our guest Todd Rogers about the actual software and the processes for developing visualizations in the civil world. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. Hey, everybody. We want to tell you about what we think is the most vital career development and training tool in the civil and survey world today, the Zentech Civil Engineering Hub. This professionally curated web forum offers hundreds of hours of technology and design training with more hours of video added every single week. The Zentech Civil Engineering Hub also gives you the latest industry news, design practices, white papers, best practice guides for all things civil and survey related. We have open community discussion forums where you can network with other design professionals, ask for help, discuss technical issues, request bids, post job openings. Listen, it's an ideal place to advance your professional career. Whether you're a licensed professional looking for professional development hours, or a drafter designer looking to enhance your tech skills, the Zentech Civil Engineering Hub is the one resource you have to have. Rocco, where can folks go to learn more about and even access the Zentech Civil Engineering Hub for a free trial?
Yeah, they can find us at zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK consultants.net. Feel free to give us a ring, 866-824-4459, or drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
Perfect answer. The Zentech Civil Engineering Hub. Everything you need for your professional development. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. And we're back with Todd Rogers of Walter P. Moore. And we're going to talk about the process for visualization in the civil and GIS world, right? So, we talked about the why of all of this in the first half of today's podcast. And now I want to get into the how. So, Todd, I'm going to assume here that a lot of your visualization work is going to start with point cloud data. So let's start there. Like, how are you collecting that info, and what tools are you using to process it? I mean, in particular, what method are you using to move it from just being kind of static points to something that's more solid and presentable in a viz?
So as much as I would like to have more point cloud data to do this, we don't work with it much. However, we are in negotiations with Nearmap, which actually you can get point cloud data from their resource now, which is a new thing that they got, which is really awesome. Point cloud data that I've done in the past, I've kind of collected on myself with a drone. Now, we do have a list of drone vendors for us to use, but we don't. I'm not sure why, but we don't. Maybe that's something we'll do in the future, hopefully. But as far as processing point cloud data into it, we use Recap. So we do have, from time to time, we'll get a tunnel scan or something, and I use Recap to process that data. From Recap, you can attach that into Civil 3D and actually build a surface from that. So you have an actual mesh as a surface. Right,
yeah, just putting a straight tin. I'm glad to hear you guys are using Nearmap. Actually, it's a funny thing, just as a completely aside, it just popped in my brain when you said that. We work with Civil Site Design, which is kind of like an alternative to Civil 3D here, and they actually just closed a deal with Nearmap where you can actually import the point cloud data and their GIS and geographic and georeference data straight into your DWG files, which really makes it very, very nice. It's a great little tool. So yeah, Nearmap is a great little system. I'm impressed with what they're presenting.
Yeah, for sure.
So okay. All right, so yeah, like you said, so I really would have thought you were doing a lot more point cloud data, but that's okay.
I really would like to. Yeah. I really would like to. It's in the horizon.
Okay, no worries. So all right, so all right, we'll put that and say point cloud's done or cleaned up, right? And but no matter where you're working, right, you're gonna have to look at taking whatever you've got in terms of your existing data, like you said, whether it was point cloud or survey or geomatics, whatever you have going on, photogrammetry. You're gonna have to blend that existing data and your proposed design, right? And there are a lot of tools out there for working that blend, right? From Infraworks, Civil 3D, 3ds Max, right? Dozens of others. Each one of them has a lot of different tools and a lot of different ways to kind of integrate those. And there's definitely effort and training that needs to go into learning these softwares, so that you can put a visualization together in a rational amount of time, right? So that's one thing I think that people need to consider. On the whole, though, I think some of these systems are much more visualization friendly than the others. For example, right, Civil 3D. It does have some modeling and rendering capacity, but it's not really its forte. It's really a design tool.
Right.
When you get into visualizations, I'm assuming that the tools designed specifically for that are the way to go. So which tools, Todd, do you think are or what have you found to be the most effective for civil project visualizations? Which ones are the easiest to use, but that still give you a real high quality output?
So what I've found in my workflow is I'll do it in InfraWorks, and I can take that InfraWorks model and export it out as a FBX file. Mm-hmm. From that, I used to, back in the day, use Lumion, but now I'm using Twinmotion. Twinmotion was purchased by Epic Games last year, so it now runs on the Unreal Engine. And it is so easy to use and produces some very, very realistic stuff, man. You got animated cars, animated people, birds, the trees, the leaves blowing the wind. It's fabulous. You can change it to a rainy day, a sunny day. You can change it from night to day. It's so easy to use. You can push that out to VR. You can push it out as a video or still shots. It's great stuff.
Again, some real high end rendering without all the traditional nightmares of setting up, lighting and shadow casting and all the other
exactly.
horrors that took so long. And again, it does bring you right back to what you were saying before, right? As the technology improves, and really, the funny thing is, like you said, it's as it blends more and more into those game engines, it's becoming much more user friendly, and it makes it much more effective for us to be able to do these visualizations without the immense costs that I think we all kind of in our brains associate with doing the civil visualization. So,
right.
Okay. All right. So, I also think that there's a difference in, what any particular package is meant to handle. And like I said, some packages are great with site and building features, but don't work really well with vehicles and people. And like I said, I'd have to imagine you'd need a good idea of what you're looking to create in terms of output, right, before you even really begin your visualization project, so that you can choose to work in the right software.
Yeah.
So do you have different packages that you use for different types of visualization, or have you found that one package that, like you were just saying, really handles most everything now?
So we actually have a developing department. One of the guys that is the head of the development department is Scott Gauthier, and the guy is an absolute genius. This is how I knew I came to work for the right company. So, about 2 weeks into my starting there, I went out to visit them to see their processes and things, and he built an interface for virtual reality where, when we were doing the Rams stadium, you could take and sit in any seat in that stadium and see what it would look like to watch the game. You could walk, you could ride around in a one of those man lifts. You could go up and down in the man lift. Oh, it was absolutely fabulous, man. I said, yep, I'm so glad I took your offer and came to work here. Yeah, so very fortunate to have that team.
Yeah, it definitely helps when you have people who know what they're doing. That's a major plus. Okay.
Yes, indeed.
All right, so Rocco, let's bring you into the conversation back here again. So in terms of visualization tools, or any of the ones that Todd has been talking about here, which ones do our clients bring up, right? I mean, are they part of common conversations in the working world, or are Todd and I just living in our own little geek world here?
No, they're definitely products that I've heard of. Again, in casual conversation, you do hear some folks using them. But, it comes back to the limited use. So I think with more exposure, with discussions like these, potentially with the marketing, you're going to probably see more and more folks using them. But
right.
You know, a lot of people, like Todd says, you have so many tools just within the Autodesk AEC collection that a lot of folks aren't even making use of. So, and that's part of where we can at Zentech we can help with the training component.
Yeah.
So, uh,
There, see,
yeah,
Rocco always got to get the sales pitch in there. Good man,
Yeah.
I
Rocco.
do.
That's why I bring him here so he can handle
There's
it.
the plug.
There's the plug. You always got to get that in. The important stuff. It's how I pay my mortgage.
I think a lot of people are scared when they see these renderings and videos of things. They're like, wow, that's neat. I would never be able to do that. They just get scared. They think it's a huge process to do. It just takes a little bit of effort, and you're on your way, man.
Yeah. Like I said, particularly with that AEC collection, you're starting with something like InfraWorks, which is just about one of the most user-friendly tools. I mean, I'm with you. It's got some hiccups and some glitches and gotchas in there when you get into more detailed stuff. But I mean, in general, just the ability for the average person to just go in and just do a lot of point and click and get some pretty solid output in a couple of minutes from a visualization standpoint, And then, like I said, from there, it's just about taking it and, like you said, moving it into a more advanced graphics engine to really get those videos and the things that you need and tweak them and get the right colorizations and so on. It's not something that requires, a Hollywood studio director with lighting background and so on to do this stuff, right? It really isn't. It's stuff that you can actually work. Any rational person who can point and click a mouse can figure this out in a couple of days. It really isn't that
Absolutely.
difficult. So, all right. So
YouTube it.
There you go. YouTube. It's always your friend. Okay. So, all right. I think we'd be a little bit amiss in our duties here. All right, if we didn't take the time to talk about the new possibilities in visualization and where they're likely to be heading in the future. And Todd, you've already mentioned this a couple times. So and that means, right, at least to my limited brain, the advent of VR and AR into the design world, right? These two 3D visualization tools are touted in the news and everywhere as the next big paradigm shift, right? And this is where the design world is going to go. So for starters, Todd, tell everybody what is the difference between VR and AR and how they both play into the design world.
So virtual reality and augmented reality. So virtual reality is being somewhere virtually, right? You're not actually there. You're in this virtual environment. Augmented reality is a mix between real life and virtual life. So you have I've seen this new stuff on LinkedIn. I think it's ARGIS. It's incredible. I love their technology. But they're showing, that you got your iPad pointed at a manhole, and you can actually see the AR, which is the augmented reality, of the designed pipe coming out of the designed new manhole over this existing manhole, and it's got all the information about it, the size, the type, da-da-da-da-da. It's absolutely fabulous. These guys are doing a hell of a job with this software, and I think they're going to be very successful with it. Yeah. And that is stuff like that is with GIS going the way it's going and it's going to be a great marriage because you're going to have all this data that has all this metadata attached to it that you can look up something in a matter of a second.
Yeah, it's insane, isn't it? I mean, the augmented reality for me actually is one of the most staggering things. I was actually, just take a quick story, I was at an AU, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And I went to one of the presentations, one of their earlier AR presentations, and we actually went outside the casino where they were hosting AU that year. And they had an open courtyard outside.
Yep.
And we actually went in there and the guy said, cool, let me show you exactly how this is going to work. And everybody, of course, had phones and iPads, and he just gave us a web address. And he said, okay, everybody pull it up. And you see all the stuff that he had laid out in terms of, benches and trees and a walk and a fountain and everything. We could literally, and it didn't matter. It's not like a still image. As you walked around, I could walk around the bench. And it's going to be right here in front of me, and I could just hold the iPad in front of me and see exactly how it played out in the real world. I mean, it was just, you could see the people standing next to it, like the guy next to you with the iPad. You could see him in the frame. It's blending the camera and the virtual material together. It's incredible what they can do with AR. So
it sure is. It really is. Did you ever see Jeff and Jerry Bartle's Chicken and Waffles AR they did?
No, I don't think I have.
Yeah, so they passed out. I love those guys, man. That's two solid guys there. Uh, yeah, they have this work set that they used to teach the AEC collection, taking all the tools from the AEC collection into this whole workflow. Well, the end result was a chicken and waffles restaurant. And so they passed out these chicken and waffle coasters that what you'd do is you'd scan the QR code on the back, turn the coaster back over, and there would be the chicken and waffles restaurant on top of that coaster.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah, it was great.
It's amazing what they can do with it. So yeah, so augmented and virtual reality. Okay, so now right, we know what they are thanks to Todd. He explained for us for limited brains like mine. So let's talk about how do we develop those types of models, right? What is the tech that we need to work with them, and is it really worth the time and the effort? So Todd, what's the process for developing, one of these AR VR models, right? And what type of software and hardware are the end users going to need to even begin to get into that space?
So we have your typical, it's not the Oculus, it's the HTC, is that what it is?
That sounds
HTC, the HTC VR set. It's not very expensive. You can get the whole setup for less than $1,000. You might be able to get it less than $500 now. I haven't checked in a while, but that's what we use. Software, we use the developed software, obviously, that the guys in the office develop. But you can use 3ds Max Interactive, which comes in your suite or your collection. Mm-hmm. You can use Navisworks to do certain types of VR. You can use Twinmotion to do it. You can output it from Max. As far as AR, I haven't gotten into AR very much, but a good friend of mine, Matt Wunsch, uses Torch app. If you've ever heard of Torch, and man, he does some really cool AR stuff.
Okay, nice. Yeah, as far as he
uses a drone and all that to do his stuff. It's really phenomenal.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned with most AR, I don't know what the actual software is there for placing it and tying it to the scan codes. But most standard 3D BIM type models can be just ported right over. So it's really just like you said, it's really primarily just apps to place them on into a geosynchronous location, so you can see where it lays in the real world. So they're pretty lightweight apps, so they're not very expensive and difficult to work with either. All right. So last question, Todd, that I have for you today before we wrap it up. With the AR and VR, are they really going to be as widely adopted in the civil industry as the news wants us to think? Or do you think that the tech that's needed and related costs are going to keep that type of visualization restricted to just really large projects? Or do you think we're going to see it on everyday work processes?
So as far as it being adopted in the civil industry, it's really a case where you see my company, Walter P. Moore, and like, man, those guys are awesome. They get all the work. We need to do something that they're doing. Hey, there you go. You're adopting it.
There you go.
That's one. Yeah. As far as small and large projects, I don't see the AR and VR being very helpful or being used very much on a large project. Yeah. Like the Walmart project we're working on, that would be fantastic. Now, I haven't put it in VR. I'm sure one of the architects, we're working with Gensler. Gensler's a fabulous architectural firm. But I have taken the site and put it into 3ds Max Interactive and showed them how to drive a taxi cab around the Walmart campus, with an Xbox controller. So that's kind of cool. That kind of gets everybody, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, you can turn into that driveway pretty easy there. Or, oh, that driveway's a little tight to get into. Maybe we need to redesign that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's really, I think I tend to agree with you there. There's always a balance. There's never one tool that fits everything.
Exactly.
You take the tools that are going to work for the job that you have in front of you, and you adapt them. right? But like I said, I think it's something that most everybody should be looking at. They said, hey, every company out there wants to be Walter P. Moore. So like you said, do what Walter Moore does, and then you can hopefully someday be a competitor for them.
There you go.
There you go. It's all set. All right. So I think we can leave it there for today. I want to thank Todd Rogers from Walter P. Moore for being here again today. Todd, we appreciate that you came back on and listened to our loud rantings and answered all our silly questions.
Love you guys.
We appreciate you.
I hope you invite me back again.
Hey, believe me, as long as you keep coming back, we'll keep inviting. So, all righty, folks. So thank you all for listening in, and we will catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.